Get ready to quit the bill.
Here we go.
The QTB crew is rounding up all the gaming news and hot topics of the week with a little extra something. And here are your hosts, Bruno and Nick.
What it do? Welcome to the QTB podcast. We're so glad you could join us. My name is Bruno, and with me, as always, is my childhood friend and co-host, Nicholas William Billingham IV. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. You know, that's the name that I use whenever I put on my fancy monocle that I bought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm still waiting on the sir. We're still waiting on the queen to kind of get off her butt and, you know, get the sir title, because you deserve to be knighted, sir. You do.
I'm pretty sure they just
true.
hand that title out these days. Like, you can just go and like pay $100 and there you go. Sign here.
Like one of those lord things, like become a lord or lady today and own a plot of land in Scotland.
Become a sir.
And become a sir. Become a sir. Like,
yeah.
I would be really mad though if they just sent me the certificate and not the actual plot of land. Like,
right.
I want some grade A sod here. I'm trying to redo my backyard. Let's get on it, okay?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be doing a sweet gaming merch giveaway here for our listeners. All you have to do is write us a review on Apple Podcasts and you'll be entered into the giveaway. You have to actually write a review so that way we can see the name that's attached to the rating. And once you do that, you'll be entered into the giveaway. The giveaway is actually sponsored by Pierce Unlimited. They've got some awesome merch over there, some gaming pins and stickers. And we're going to be giving away some awesome merch every month to people who go and write us an awesome little review on Apple Podcasts. So today's podcast was sponsored in part by Pierce Unlimited. For marketing media that works and bespoke design to power your business, visit pierceunlimited.com.
Well, a little later on in the show, we're going to be talking about just the onslaught of news that's been breaking for PlayStation in basically the last 48 hours. A lot of interestingly timed news. I think they were kind of waiting for that Nintendo Direct to get out of the way before they're like, oh, but look at what we've got. So we'll be talking about what's behind the curtain there. And also that news now that once again, and this happens like every 10 years, it's almost like it's like a movie plot where like every 10 years something terrible has to happen. In this case, it's there is a House representative in Illinois that wants to once again ban violent video games. So we'll be talking about the why and the how. Definitely the how is going to be our question.
Them video games.
Yeah, you got to look out for them. So, but what we're going to talk about right now, and I mean, this is, you know, when you want to talk about heavy hitting news that everyone's talking about, this is right up there with the greats.
What are the kids clamoring about?
Well, you know, we've been talking about all the new kind of game services and consoles that have been out there that are trying to compete in a market that's been largely dominated by three people, you know, the Sonys, Microsofts, and Nintendos of the world. And, you know, we got the Amazons and the Googles now in there with Stadia and Luna and all sorts of other interesting offerings, even Atari back in the mix these days. But the one that no one saw, well, okay, let me rephrase this. What no one saw coming like 2 years ago, and I don't think they saw coming yet again, is Soulja Boy. So, oh yeah,
my gosh! Tell him, tell him.
So originally, of course, Soulja Boy just known for cranking that Superman,
telling him.
And of course, he has since moved on to other interesting ventures. I think he's had in hand in esports. He's kind of one of those kind of I do a little bit of everything. Kind of the Shaquille O'Neal of rappers.
Which, speaking of which, I actually I'm sitting in a brand new Shaquille O'Neal office chair. This is not an ad or a plug, but just the fact that you mentioned that Shaq is in everything. He's friends with the general, so he can save some time.
That's right.
And he's got awesome office chairs going on. I mean, what is it? And he's like the face of Papa John's now. It's Papa Shaq's.
Papa Shaq's, and he's doing with those Epson printer commercials now. He's all about those. He's like, oh, it's just fill and chill. Not a sponsor. But I mean, what doesn't Shaq do, you know? But
wow.
So Soulja Boy kind of trying to live up to that reputation. So a little bit of history here for you, for our listeners, and for you too, Bruno. You know, this was about a year or so ago, maybe a little bit more, where Soulja Boy initially made this big announcement that he was going to be jumping into the world of video game consoles. and of course was met with a lot of skepticism of what's this guy's angle, right? So of course time goes on and his shop starts to get flooded with all of these what essentially are just these, the foreign bought consoles that look like consoles, but they're like those all-in-one, plug and play devices that are obviously cheaply made, but have a lot of prepackaged ROMs built into it, and of course many of them don't work very well at all. And so he just was putting out, new thing after new thing. And in a lot of cases, it was just a product that you could already buy from a different company. It was the same product, but he was just selling it on his shop for like twice as much.
Yeah, without put the Soulja Boy sticker on there and
not even a sticker. Not even a sticker. In some cases, the people that were buying these things, I think it was JonTron was crazy enough to buy one, and he got it, and it's like, yeah, this is. What is this? What am I looking at? So
man, he didn't even get stickers to put on him, bro. Yeah. That's lazy.
Yeah, it really is. And so, and sure enough, a lot of his advertising was like these poorly written English guides to like how you can plug in your device and play it. And like classic AV out cables, like the red, yellow, and white cables.
Oh wow, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's how you know you got a winner.
That's how you know.
Showing images of things like Super Smash Brothers on there. So obviously it was just a matter of time with his level of notoriety on the internet and just being famous, that of course he started to get hit with those takedown notices by pretty much any major company you can think of that was like, yeah, no.
Yeah, no, it's not happening.
And that's the big thing is when you try to do this, and you're overseas, you can get away with it because it's harder to go after somebody, that's based out of China, right?
Yeah.
But when you've got a face, that's actually in a place you can sue. After the takedowns and the potential lawsuits, he pulled those from his shop right quick and was like, I'm gonna be back, don't you worry. And everyone's like, okay, Soulja Boy, okay. We get it. But no, he actually is trying to come back.
He is back.
So the news story is that he is.
It's like herpes. He just won't go away.
I mean, it's like glitter with craft supplies. Right? Once you get it on you,
it's just stuck there.
That's it.
What is this?
So yeah, that's his new thing, is that he is releasing a new one. He made this, releasing a new console, and you should be able to see the image there on quitthebuild.com on our blog.
Yeah, it looks like, for our listeners out there, it looks like an Xbox Series S.
Yeah.
With a PlayStation controller.
Just plugged right in.
Yeah, plug right in. That's exactly what it looks like.
It's not, I guarantee you that whatever this is that we're looking at, and this was an actual image from his Instagram about what the device was going to look like. It's most likely going to just, like I said, have those prepackaged ROMs on there, and I mean, you can see it. It looks like someone just gutted an Xbox and then plugged in the cheapest, Mad Cats or whatever the equivalent of Mad Cats is these days. I haven't been keeping up with third-party controllers.
Yeah.
But, I mean, how crazy is this that he thinks he can get away with it a second time?
I mean, I hope he puts a sticker on it this time, first of all. And maybe it will be different. Maybe it will be different. I still think there's a market out there for a home console that gives access to PC games like Steam, and maybe other apps like Xbox Game Pass or something of that nature. So I do think there's a market out there for another console to come into the mix, because not everyone's ready to get into building a gaming PC. I know a lot of PC gamers out there will be like, well, it's just so much cheaper to build a PC. And I agree, I've built my own PC, but that doesn't stop me from playing on console. There's just something that growing up in the 90s, I feel very connected to playing on a console with a controller. And I I've got tons of friends that still play on console. So that's another reason that I think a lot of people are drawn to the console game now. And for the most important part, it's just so easy to plug and play. People want something that they can just plug in and play. They don't want to have to worry about, am I downloading the right thing? Is this compatible with my computer? All the requirements that go into PC gaming are simplified with things like PlayStation and Xbox and Nintendo. So if someone could come through and do a Steam-like console and have access to PC like gaming through a console, I think there would be a place for that in the sphere of gaming. Is there something like that already, or what's the deal here?
Well, Steam tried this already.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Like, it didn't really work. I think it was called the Steam Box.
I remember them doing something similar.
Yeah, where you could get a controller that was like a special controller that could emulate a mouse with a little touchpad and all that kind of thing. And yeah, you could get on there and play Steam games. And I guess for whatever reason, I remember them making a big deal out of it initially, and then it just kind of faded into obscurity. I believe it's since been discontinued. So, I think the problem becomes, if you really wanted to play PC games, you could just plug a PC into your TV. Like, it's not that hard nowadays, especially now that there's easy to use apps like Steam Link, or just apps that let you access your PC remotely, especially if you're wired up to an Ethernet connection. But you're right, there's definitely a market for somebody to come in. I think we can get there, but like we've been seeing and talking about in past episodes, companies like Google are making some ripples. They haven't necessarily found their footing yet, but Lord knows they're trying. I don't think it's gonna be Soulja Boy. Call me crazy. Call me crazy.
What?
I don't think Soulja Boy is going to be the one to get us there. And, looking at this, like I said, it's obviously a blatant cash grab. And I think what frustrates me the most about this, Bruno, is the reason why he's emboldened and feels like he can get away with doing something like this a second time is because people buy it. I promise you that there enough people bought it the first time around that he's looking at the money and saying, okay, well, I've talked to my lawyers. And, obviously there's going to be a timeline for when we have to take this stuff down. But at least in the meantime, I can sell stuff. And, he's the kind of person that's like, I don't want to call him washed up because I'm not a celebrity. I'm not going to pretend. I don't like talking down to people like that. But, I do think that he's in a point of his life where, he had his big hit single and never quite replicated that success. And so like a lot of people who move on from stardom but still have that celebrity status, they leverage it into products and becoming a sponsor for things, and attaching their name to things to lend credibility to it, right? Because it's a great way to make money. Just look at I think it's called Cameo right now. All of these like C and D list celebrities are now just available at your whim to basically like do or say what you want for like $100. Which is a really cool idea. Like, there's a lot of, they may not mean much to people these days, but maybe like, 80s and 90s stars from certain TV shows or whatever that like, as like a birthday gift to someone or just a cool idea to give to a friend or a prank or something. Like, it's awesome. Like, it's great that there's a good way to leverage your fame. But this is just not it. I would rather deal with like the whole Gwyneth Paltrow Goop thing than have to deal with someone who's obviously just grifting a console that was made overseas. And some people on Reddit already figured this out, by the way, Bruno. They already know like the model of like where he got this from online. I mean, that's the thing about the internet. Like, you can't fool anybody. Like, they're gonna reverse image search and use every algorithm known to man from MIT and beyond to be able to source exactly where they got it from. And of course it is just some cheap made console.
He was, I would say, arguably, he was the pioneer of celebrity gaming. And I know that I'm not saying that celebrities weren't gamers before Soulja Boy.
Okay.
But he really like put himself out there on YouTube of like him playing and made a big deal that he was this gamer and it was part of his persona. So you'd think he'd want to do a fan service for video games and actually be taken seriously.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like that's the case. You're right. It seems like he's just, hustling everyone, which is very on brand for him. And I agree. Like, we haven't heard anything from him in a while, and this is not what I thought we would hear from him.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a scam all day. It's a scam all day.
It's for sure. There's nothing more to say other than this is it's definitely gonna go on our list of novelty consoles. We've been talking about this for quitthebuild.com of coming up with a blog of novelty consoles that we know they're a joke. The KFC console, like, it's a funny idea and it's great, but let's be honest, we're not really.
But you can buy it.
You can buy it, but we're not going to.
Yeah, and that's always a fun marketing thing, even if you just produce a limited number where it's like, you can say like, yeah, we did release this. And kind of a testament to how modern marketing can get so creative and so weird and be successful. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that we are in an era where celebrities can get into the gaming space just kind of naturally. I know like certain big names like Ronda Rousey, they do, or she does rather, Twitch streams and that kind of thing where, you already have an organic, fan base, and you just kind of cross-reference that with the same people who are into gaming, and bing, bang, boom, you've got a Twitch channel, and it's a cool way
bang, boom.
To actually let your fans kind of hang out with you and play games, and, there's just nothing more down to earth than someone just, trying to piecemeal their way through a difficult game and getting to experience that.
Definitely. It makes celebrities more approachable.
Yeah.
In that respect, it takes them off of this pedestal. And I was talking to my wife about that the other day, about just the access that we have to celebrity figures now that we didn't have 20 some years ago.
Right.
With Twitter and everything, Instagram, we see into the lives of these people and they become more real. And I think that's something that we've definitely seen, not to get off on a tangent of that, but it's with so many avenues to reach your audience. This is not the way. I think it just, like you said, it tarnishes your brand.
Yeah.
Like you've already done it once, and you've come out and we saw what you were doing, and you're just trying it again. So at a certain point, it just becomes like a tarnished brand. Like I said, that you're like, yeah, I don't trust that POS, like, and others like other internet stars are taking advantage of the same type of things. Belle Delphine, she was a YouTube star and turned adult star, and she sold her bath water to thirsty gamers everywhere.
Right.
That's what she called like her bath water, and
it's sold.
It's sold. She sold out of it, and I'm over here like trying to like make an actual living, and I'm like, nobody's gonna want this bath water.
Oh man, if there is a market for it, you don't want to get involved. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, that's bordering just weird.
Yeah.
You want my what? If you want to buy it, I guess.
Right.
And so guys are gross. That's the real moral of the story.
Yeah, nothing new there. All I'm saying is like, and for you to even call like Soulja Boy what he's doing a brand is very generous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone has their own personal brand.
Yeah.
And that's, Soulja Boy is not his God-given name, like, or his that's not
really?
That's I'm assuming that's not on his birth certificate. It's not Soulja Boy.
Soulja William Boy. Yeah.
I really wish it was now. Like, I wish I could see his like driver's license and just see Soulja William Boy.
Some of these guys legally change their name. Like, they're doing that.
Totally.
It's really frustrating to me knowing that people got duped the first time around, and to think that things are coming together to let this happen again. I hope he gets hit with a lawsuit so fast. That, especially because this thing bears such a resemblance to Xbox and Sony consoles.
Yeah.
Before he even gets it in the store.
Literally stole the design from one and the other. And we'll just put them together.
Yeah. And he's already saying that it's a new console that he's building from scratch. So there's your first lie. It's an all-new design, which we already, come on. Like, who are you? What gamer design is like, oh, yeah, I've never seen that before? Like, who are you fooling?
I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
What?
And also
DualShock?
promising all new games, which I'm pretty sure he's going to get used as a legal loophole of, well, it's games I didn't have on my other consoles. Because, I mean, come on, man. The development time to make any kind of decent game, even the development time to make like crappy mobile games, no way. Absolutely no way. Like we said, it's just a matter of time until this gets shut down. It's not if, but when. And I'm kind of ready for us to just kind of move past this and for this guy to get hit with enough fury from lawyers that no one ever attempts something like this again. I remember back in the day where, like, outside our GameStop, and I think most malls had like this kiosk, right? All the little kiosks that were in between stores where like one guy's like trying to sell you like eyebrow threading or beauty products. And then right around the holidays, you would always get that one stall that was usually strategically located near your GameStop or whatever, Funko Land or whatever you happen to have, that would be selling like all these consoles that kind of look like consoles, just enough to like get, Grandma Ethel to stop by and, I need a Nintendo for the boys, and stop over there, and they're offering like the Nintendo. For $19.99, and it's got 200 games. You can't go wrong, but you will.
It's got Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, when you actually go to return it, they've left town like any proper circus would after people have caught on to their scam. Everyone's a loser, right? So it just reminds me of that, and I appreciated like the corniness of that in the day, but at the same time I'm like, wow. Even as a kid, I'm like, there's gonna be other kids that like that's what they're gonna get on Christmas morning. And look, I'm not judging, like they are budget options, right? Yeah. And that's what he's essentially selling here is gonna be that budget option if you didn't buy it through him, because he's going to jack up the price like 3 times, of being like, okay, well, I can plug this right in and I have instant access to all these games, and maybe the emulation hardware is good enough to run it decently, but
they had his name in the article. At least that's probably the thought process that American rapper known as DeAndre Cortez Way to his mom.
To his mom.
That's what it says. They called him out to his mom. DeAndre Cortez Way, get your butt over here. Are you trying to make a fake console again?
Again? Oh, man. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. It's like I said, it's a vicious cycle, and one that I'm hoping that this will be the last that we hear of something like this. But I know I'm gonna watch the train wreck go down just like everybody else.
Yeah, and there's gonna be people out there be like, bro, he's not gonna burn us twice in a row, bro. Okay, he's not gonna do it. He gave us a hit club banger. Yeah. Okay, there's no way.
Yeah, exactly. What could go wrong? He should have just gone the route of like every other like rapper celebrity that's like looking for their next thing and just release like a cologne or like some liquor.
Yeah, right? Like a cologne would be a good one. Yeah, or something like that. Get on the tequila train, because everybody's making tequila nowadays.
All you have to do is say handcrafted. Doesn't matter what that means. If it's handcrafted, yes, then it must be good, right? Yep. All right, well, we'll be right back, and we'll be talking a little bit more about what's going on in the wonderful world of PlayStation right after this. Hello, is this Irma
Fushnik, what do you want?
Of course. Well, Irma, I'm calling to talk to you about podcasts. If you haven't heard, Anchor.fm is the easiest way to make a podcast.
I don't have any money. I don't want anything.
Well, with Anchor, you don't need any money. It's absolutely free, and you can record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer.
Is this a cult? I don't want any Kool-Aid.
No, ma'am, not that I'm aware of. Podcasts are like radio talk shows for the internet, or talkies, as you might know them.
Listen, young man, I am not that old, but I do remember them, so touche. Whiskers, will you get out of there? Jeremy, clean the cat box. He needs to get a job. 40 is too old to be living with your mother.
Irma, I couldn't agree more. Jeremy could make money from a podcast. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more.
Okay, I'm hooked. No one would listen to Jeremy. He's not very smart. We all know I have the sexy voice that lures the gentleman in like a sexy siren mermaid lures in burly bearded pirates.
Well, you can get started today. Just visit anchor.fm for more details.
And we're back. It's 7:32 and 34 seconds p.m. somewhere, maybe.
Maybe. Is that how time zones work?
It was I traveled across the country, and I can tell you that you do time travel when you go into like the different time zones. It's very crazy. I was very, very discouraged when it said your arrival time is 5 p.m. and then I got to the time zone change and it pushed me back an hour.
No.
It's like that scene in, when you're at school and the clock starts going backwards. You're like, no, I just want to be out of school for summer.
Oh, man.
So speaking of being out of school for summer and playing video games like the PlayStation.
What a segue. We have mastered the segue in just a few short months. Amazing. Well, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it, Bruno, because PlayStation, they've been kind of quiet, at least until the last week or so. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the general woes of supply issues of getting, consoles out to the people. They probably didn't want to make any huge announcements when people really couldn't even get the darn thing. And even still, it looks like there's going to be some chip shortages that will lead to more of a squeeze in 2021 and maybe even beyond. But, we did get a lot of news from PlayStation that I feel like we got to talk about because I wonder if the Nintendo Direct had anything to do with this because, like I said, they were pretty quiet until that Nintendo Direct drops. And, once Nintendo played their hand of their big releases, they're like, okay, well, here's what we've got, And in the last 48 hours or so, we've gotten a lot of huge announcements, both for upcoming hardware, game delays that are first party, and also an announcement that there will be a State of Play, which is the equivalent of a Nintendo Direct for Sony, coming up on a little bit later this month. So we'll be getting 10 game announcements for both the PlayStation 4 and 5 that will also some updates to existing third-party and indie titles. But there's a lot of speculation running right now. I mean, Twitter's just been on fire about people trying to figure out what the next big, reveal is going to be and kind of what's due. And I'll tell you, after Nintendo Direct kind of letting people down with the first party games, I think people
it's
are kind of
easy to hit a homer here.
I think so, actually. Yeah.
Right?
Of just
pitching softballs. What do you got?
Yeah. And I think maybe that's why they're like, okay, State of Play this week is like, we can beat that. Right? Like they know what they've got. So, yeah. So one of the big things that I'm hearing people kind of speculating about, and hey, next episode, we'll definitely know what that stuff is going to be. But a lot of people are talking about Final Fantasy 16 because we haven't really heard a whole lot about what that's going to be. And just like the Grand Theft Auto series, Final Fantasy has kind of come to a complete stop. Final Fantasy 14 was an MMO, so to most people that are purists that want the story-driven game, single-player experience, that doesn't even count.
Yeah.
Then you had Final Fantasy 15, which has been re-released and had spin-offs, and I mean, it's basically been the Final Fantasy game for almost a decade. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but it's definitely been a while. And so we're more than overdue for that. And part of me wonders just, were they able to just keep milking the Final Fantasy 15? Because, I mean, it was an okay game, but I never felt like it was a definer for Square Enix, but who knows? That may be one of the big things that is coming our way. What kind of games do you think we might be seeing here, Bruno?
I think that Final Fantasy is definitely something that PlayStation has always played close to them in terms of what they plan on releasing. It's a great franchise for them to bring in new people with something like a remake or even a remaster, if you want to call it that. Although I mentioned Justin's new article on quitthebuild.com is really about the idea of PlayStation reimagining Final Fantasy with the Final Fantasy VII remake. Yeah. It kind of disappointed old fans who expected a certain narrative and then were let down because maybe that narrative couldn't have been fulfilled in the original game, whether it was game mechanics or whatever. And so it's interesting to see these original creators take control of their game again.
Yeah.
And say, well, technically this is what we wanted to do from the start, but we couldn't.
Yeah.
Which that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea.
Right.
That just means that's just what you wanted to do. So
yeah.
I think we're definitely going to see more from Final Fantasy. Obviously, they've got to give part 2 for the second Final Fantasy 7
definitely.
remake.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say. I've never really put too much faith in what PlayStation announces in terms of games. And it's not because I don't have, I'm not interested in their exclusives. They've got great exclusives. They really do. And a lot of the exclusives that they mention and have mentioned previously in E3 have been games that I would literally buy the console for, but I've always held off. I still have a PlayStation 4, but just in theory, if I didn't, I would be like, oh yeah, definitely buying this for this game. And the game ends up getting released eventually after a very, very, very long time. That's the other thing. PlayStation likes to announce things as soon as they have, concept art. They're like, here's this game we're working on. And then you won't see it again for 5 years. The Last Guardian was announced the beginning of PlayStation 3. And everyone was like, this is going to be so amazing. It's going to be the best game ever. And then PlayStation 3 went throughout its entire lifespan. Never released. PlayStation 4 comes out. They're like, it's coming. It's coming.
Wait for it.
Wait for it. And then the entire PlayStation 4 lifespan goes. And then they're like, finally release this game. And I believe it got released. And it just it didn't live up to expectations. So many times PlayStation hasn't delivered on the flash that they've, they've shown. It's been a lot of hoopla, and that is great to lure in new people that might not be aware of that. But for somebody that's been around since the beginning of PlayStation's life and seen how they've taken things from really trying to put out good content that draws in people to giving more cinematics and stuff, they've really redefined what gaming can be. And I think that maybe we might look back on some of these games 20 years from now and be like, actually, that was a pretty interesting game. It just came out at the wrong time. It was more cinematic experience and less of a game. And I think we might get to that point, but we're not there yet. And so a lot of these games end up seeing a letdown. Things like the PlayStation VR, for example, they're redoing another one, correct? They're coming out with a new one?
Correct. So one of the big announcements this week is that the PlayStation VR 2, and it may not necessarily be even called that, is going to be coming out. They have confirmed it. It will be coming to the PS5 only. And be more of a streamlined experience, better display, only one cable that actually comes out of the headset. I think the other version for the PS4 had a little bit more cord clutter going on, but it's not going to be coming in 2021. And I think you're definitely right that they have had a tough time with certain franchises just getting pushed by the wayside through entire console generations.
Yeah,
but I think just in general with this new gen, I think with the impact that COVID has had overall with the company, I think Sony's had it the worst in terms of just misfortune because Nintendo, they're a very close and I think small enough and tightly knit company, working mostly out of Japan to produce these games and just localized in other countries, that they haven't really been affected as much. I think they've been able to keep pace with new releases without so much as skipping a beat. But on the other hand, and I think Xbox has had problems too, both with the with game releases like Halo Infinite, but also just the hardware shortage, right? That they've been experiencing for both Sony and and Microsoft that it's just been so hard to get these new gen consoles into the hands of people that want to buy them at MSRP, that I think Sony's issue right now is that because they're so reliant on exclusive titles, that they need those studios to come through for them.
Yeah,
but
totally.
A lot of these studios aren't going to be exclusively Eastern studios or in smaller countries that have had a better response to COVID. I think any studio that's based in the States or anywhere around it has probably really seen a slowdown in the speed at which they can produce content. And I think they especially got burned because, in their big reveal for a lot of these upcoming games in June, there was a big games showcase for the PlayStation 5. And one of them, for example, was Gran Turismo 7. People have been waiting for this game for a long time. Gran Turismo fans are very passionate about that racer.
That's a PlayStation staple.
Absolutely, all the way back to the original.
Yep.
And it's already been announced that there's going to be a major delay into 2022 that is very discouraging. So it's like, okay, it's not going to be Gran Turismo. What is it going to be, right? But I think this is their big chance to wow people. And I think to really come out ahead with this, they need to not only bring some big IPs into the mix with their first-party stable on this upcoming State of Play with the reveals, but they also need to come out with some release dates that get people pumped again. Because if you keep saying 2022, 2022, 2022 for every one of these releases or later, then people are going to get discouraged. That's a really far way away for all of these exclusive titles or franchises they were hoping they would see already in their hands by now.
Yeah.
And yet we're still talking about, when they're going to come out. You're not going to be able to pull the wool over people's eyes either with pre-rendered CGI, footage anymore. Like people want to know what show me what you got.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're 100% right. I've said this since the beginning, and it's one of the reasons I've not actively tried to get an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5, is because there's no real reason to have the console right now other than improved load times.
Yeah.
That's really the only reason to have it. There's no exclusives out right now that you can't get for PlayStation 4. Maybe aside from a few here and there. But it's not the type of game that's a must play now. There are certain games I feel that come out that you're like, I've got to get in on it now. It's not going to be fun, 9 months from now. It's only going to be fun now. And there's nothing out there. So it's the same with Xbox. There's nothing Xbox related that I'm interested in until Halo Infinite comes out. When Halo Infinite comes out, I want the Xbox Series X and I want to play it on that, because after seeing Cyberpunk, Nick, I'm not sure that I want to get these next gen games on Xbox One X or Xbox One, or PlayStation 4, whatever it may be. So there is this period, I think, where maybe they've released the console too early. It wasn't really needed, so why did they release it? Especially if they can't even meet demand. And they did release PlayStation before COVID, right? When was the
November 2020? Yeah. So that was well after.
Oh, okay. I struggle to reason with why you would go ahead and release a console in the midst of a pandemic, knowing that you've struggled to get the parts made, knowing that the studios aren't able to produce the game as quickly. Why even release it? We know why Xbox released, because PlayStation said that they were going to release.
Exactly.
It's not that, there was that's the only reason that they did it. But honestly, I like I said, I just struggle to reason with why. It just kind of blows my mind, because I'm like, I don't understand why they decided to do this. It makes no sense to me. There's nothing really worth upgrading right now other than, like I said, load time. So that's really all that they've been marketing is see how slow Red Dead Redemption is on Xbox.
Yep.
Xbox One X. You can play in 30 seconds with this, and And as fun as that is, it's not like something that I need to, trample over someone at my local GameStop or Best Buy for. We can leave the violence and I can just wait till next Christmas till when they're in stock. Like,
yeah, you do not want to be a part of that mess.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right in that. Basically, Microsoft and Sony had to play like console generation chicken. Right, like okay, we can both agree to just not release.
It's like that scene in The Office where they're all standing there with their finger guns.
Yeah,
and they're like, we're all just gonna put down our weapons. I'm holding crossbows.
Yeah.
Okay, we're all gonna put down our weapons here, and nobody's gonna do anything. And then they start screaming, ah!
They all
firing. They all fire at each other. So it's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right, is that I think, and who really knows at the end of the day what these boardroom meetings sounded like, because these are just unprecedented times. But I think you got it, is that that they're both looking at each other like, okay, well, if we don't release, but they do release, then we're going to be the company that failed to deliver next gen.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the logistics of stopping pre-orders or postponing them and stopping production on something, I can't even begin to imagine the nightmare of logistics that would be. You know, once that you've gotten that ball rolling, you best keep it moving, right? So
yeah, totally.
I get why they had to do it, but yeah, I think especially when you were looking at like nobody would release pricing for the next gen consoles, Bruno. It was like. Someone's going to announce, and there's been a leak that it's somewhere between $400 and $499. Oh, I heard it was $199. Oh, well, I heard it was $10,000. Like, no one had any reputable information. Right.
That's pretty much what they're going for on eBay right now.
The buy it now button for most of these sales is probably five figures, right? So, that's kind of where we're at. Is that I think the mentality of these console providers is tout the hardware features, and whenever those console games come to us, whenever those first-party titles come to us, they come to us. Yeah. And we're just kind of at their mercy. But in the meantime, we have to give people a reason to want to buy these devices.
Yeah.
And I mean, the very limited supply that they are putting out is getting taken off the store shelves immediately.
And not by consumers, but by bots.
Yeah.
Like by resellers and scalpers. So
right.
The average person is not getting a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X.
Mm-hmm. So you're right, is that all that they can really do, and this is both Microsoft and Sony, is be like, yeah, here's what our console does and why you would want it to play games that you already have. And the solid state tech is definitely a big selling point, but it's something that's been around for a very long time with PCs. So you're not wowing me. Like I had said in a previous episode, I have like a little portable solid state drive that I can use as an external hard drive with my Xbox. So any game that I want to load quickly, I can do that without having to, pay $600-$700, in the aftermarket for one of these devices.
Yeah.
But like I originally said, I think that Sony has gotten the raw deal with all of this because they are so reliant on those first party titles.
Yeah,
that they're really basically stuck with their launch games, right? Of Spider-Man Miles Morales, which is just a new version of a game that was already out on the PS4. Looks beautiful.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, but it's the same. It's that same Spider-Man.
Yeah,
just
I've heard it was very similar.
Yeah, and you also had Demon Souls, which is just a remake of a game that already came out a while back, and I've heard good things about it. But like you said, that's just not going to be enough to make someone, except the most diehard of fans, say, honestly, okay, gotta have it.
And the most intriguing thing for me was, and you're gonna laugh, the game that I wanted to play most on PlayStation 5 was the internally built game where you got to go around and learn about the PlayStation 5 as that little guy.
Dude, people are going
was so
nuts for
clever.
That. Yeah.
Yes, that is amazing. Like that brings me back to like Wii Sports Day.
Right.
Like, like when you open the console and the game you wanted to play was the game that came with it.
Yeah.
Like, you're just excited about playing tennis or bowling. Like, and that's what I miss about Nintendo. We were talking about that in the previous episode with like Mario Golf. I miss how developers really tried to deliver a full game that was thought out from start to finish, that had systems built in place, like cheat codes that made the game have like, you know, infinite replay value, essentially. And now they just they give us a beta, essentially, and they say, well, you know, we'll fix it later. We'll fix it later. But we've got these cool cosmetics that you can buy. And it's like, that should have been in the game from the start. I shouldn't have had to pay for that. And now I'm having to pay for the extra DLC and all this other stuff. So I miss that fan service of, here's a game that already comes on the console. You learn about the history of PlayStation.
Yeah.
That game right there, a super win. I wish Xbox would do something similar with just an internally built game that was proprietary. It doesn't have to be amazing. Maybe it's a platformer like, you know, Cool Spot, 7-Up Cool Spot. Remember that?
Or the Yo-Noid from Domino's.
From Domino's.
Yeah, he had a game.
Like one of those classic games where you're the Xbox button, you know, evolving through time. Like, oh, look at me now. So I don't know. There's a million ideas like that, but that's the game that I really wanted to play.
Yeah, that's Astro's Playroom is what it's called. And
nice.
Yeah, every reviewer that I've seen that's talked about the release titles has gushed about how much they love this game, and it looks like a blast to play. I mean, it's just kind of your run-of-the-mill 3D platformer, but like you had said, as you go through, like each world is themed after a different part of the PlayStation 5 and like showcases like the one level takes place in like the solid state drive and that kind of thing where it's actually educating you about the device that you've purchased while also being a really fun game in its own right to play through and complete, and has all of these really cool callbacks to other first-party games. Like, as you go through, you'll see all these references to, like, Final Fantasy games and Gran Turismo games and almost any first-party IP you can think of has some kind of Easter egg hidden in the game. That's so clever and so fun, and you're right. That is something that we haven't seen in a very long time, of those wonder days when, like, you know, the original NES was bundled with like Super Mario Brothers, you know, and where it just you kind of expected that you'd be able to play a game out of the box. I guess in today's digital marketplace, it isn't so as hard to get a hold of something, but it is a nice little extra bonus, and definitely I think one of the biggest wins for Sony in this current gen, which is definitely saying something. But yeah, so yeah, you know, a lot of news coming from PlayStation overall, as we've been talking about, from delays to hardware confirmation with the VR. But all eyes are on that state of play. Like I said, I think it's going to be a big make or break for what we're going to see from Sony this generation, because if they can't produce some big name titles that are coming out this year or maybe early next year, then I think it's gonna people are gonna lose a lot of confidence in, even when this thing becomes available, wanting to spring full price for it. So
yeah, we'll be talking about that on Saturday's episode.
Oh yeah.
But moving along, this is something that we haven't heard in a while, but it's something that we hear all the time. Somebody wants to ban video games again.
Imagine
they want to ban them. So what's the deal here?
Well, I think the problem, Bruno, is that because there's so many, you know, state legislators and people that have a voice, that as soon as one person out of the hundreds and hundreds, you know, maybe even thousands nationwide, that says, oh, we need to buy, we know that violent video games are the problem. Yeah. That we give them too much of a platform to talk about it because it's clickbait worthy, quite frankly. Yeah. And this is no exception. So yeah, this is from Polygon about from the great state of Illinois. There is a representative that wants to ban all violent video games in order to curb violence. Some amendments were introduced last week. Now, understand something. This comes up, like we said before, every so often. Like most legislation that sounds outrageous, it is outrageous. And what's going to happen is it's going to get shot down by all the different checks and balances.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how their state legislature works, but it's more about that shock value of being like, this is the problem, this is what we need to do. But we've not really seen an act that caused a major discussion since, like we were talking about with Night Trap. And how games like that led to the creation of the MSRB, so that games were properly rated, so that parents and kids knew what they were getting before they actually bought a game.
That's ESRB.
ESRB, right. So basically what's going on is that these legislators are looking that because the rates of carjacking in Chicago especially have increased, 218 incidents reported in January. Wow. And some of these carjackings.
Chicago, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, right. It's Chicago.
Chicago.
I don't know if you've been to Chicago, but yeah, your head's on a swivel.
Yeah.
That they're seeing a large number of carjackings, and some of them, not most of them, are being performed by very young people, even as young as 15 and 16.
Well, Nick, you know what the problem is? Obviously, they need to stop making cars with a Y button to enter. That's the problem.
That's the problem.
If all cars have a Y button to enter, then you can't expect people off the streets to just not enter a car.
That's the problem. Is you can be on the sidewalk and like you're trying to press Y for something else, but you're close enough to a vehicle that all of a sudden you're like, why am I walking that way?
Yep,
oh, no.
I'm trying to, yeah, exactly. I'm trying to switch guns here, and then whoops, what's that? I'm entering a car.
I just pulled Phyllis out of her Chevy Diamante.
Yep, exactly. She didn't even see it coming, and me neither. But now we're here, and well, that's now I'm a criminal.
Yeah.
1 star.
Of course, you can probably guess, Bruno. 1 star. Of course, you can probably guess that the game that is being blamed for this is Grand Theft Auto.
Of course.
It
always is.
It always is.
Maybe because Grand Theft Auto is in the title.
That's the problem. Oh, well, that's what the game is about, right? And it's oftentimes it's these legislators that they don't know anything about the games. They just they want to go after an easy target, and they feel like that's the way to go. And so they are proposing a $1,000 fine for anyone that sells or rents out a violent video game. And what really cracks me up about this is, I remember when there was a conversation about this, I think when like Grand Theft Auto Vice City came out, that, it was just that people were having a hard time with kids trying to buy these games.
Which I had it.
I did too. I talked my dad into getting it.
I was one of the kids. Like I was one of those kids that like the other kids' parents were like getting mad at because they're like, we don't let our child play that video game. I'm like, my bad.
Yeah.
Like no one told me. All my friends were like, hey, Bruno, grab Grand Theft Auto. Let's play Grand Theft Auto.
Right.
And then our buddy's dad comes down in the basement and sees what happened, and then I get in trouble. And I'm like, yep, it's always me. It's always.
Also, I have to say this. All of these video games, they talk about, these video games let you do whatever you want, and you can be as violent as you want, and there's no repercussions, and that's why kids want to go out and do these crazy things. And it's like, have you played Grand Theft Auto? Because if I so much as just brush up against somebody, more than I should, all of a sudden I've got the entire, state or city police department pulling guns on me. Like I'm fairly confident that you've not played these games because and like the cheat codes are even harder to come by. I remember there used to be a time where like you could in like the old Grand Theft Auto games where you could like permanently disable the police as like a cheat code. But even these days, like you have to put in like these long string codes every time you want to like
phone and then dial some random number.
Yeah.
Call 555-01234 for a helicopter.
Exactly. Where I think the developers did that on purpose because even when you want to use a cheat code, you're still mildly inconvenienced. If anything. You're
mildly inconvenienced.
To summon a tank.
How dare you, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. How dare you? I want to spam tanks. I think if anything, these types of games actually teach you that there are consequences for your actions. Like, right. Like, you can't just get away with this stuff. Yep. Like, once God help you, once you get 5 or 6 stars,
have you played Grand Theft Auto online?
Yeah.
I mean, there are like even more consequences for messing with other players.
I got 13-year-old Johnny calling an orbital strike on me from space from his nuclear bunker.
Here comes the army and a hitman to take me out,
But yeah, I mean,
Damn you, Johnny.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're at a point now where, like I had said, I think the craziest thing about this is when we were having this conversation back in the 90s and 2000s, you could make a legitimate case for like, okay, if we can stop stores from physically selling these games, then we can fix the problem. And that's what they tried to do. But in all seriousness, think about it today. Like, do you really think you can implement okay, we have a fine. We're going to say, okay, there's a $1,000 fine if you sell or rent a violent video game.
Does he know how video games work?
Who is buying games in stores?
Right? Exactly. That just shows you how out of touch he is.
Yeah. Like, they're kind of having problems getting people to come in to buy games physically. And it's like, what are you gonna do? Like, put a geofencing like limitation on your Xbox, where like, oh, you're in Chicago, you can't play this game. Like, you got no shot of pulling something like that off. So most of this is just blowing hot air.
Yeah.
It's
for the constituents.
It's for exactly. It really is, and it's going to be one of those things that you'll never hear anything else about it because it's never even going to get to the floor. It's got no chance of ever actually getting turned into law. But yeah, I guess it's just that time of the decade where we'll be good. It's like cicadas, like every 17 years, where it's their time.
Cicadas, here they come again.
Yeah,
just making a bunch of noise, and
they're coming. I think it's supposed to be in like May or June. Like the really bad 17-year ones are supposed to pop up.
Those are the ones that do the damage, and the husks are everywhere.
I don't even care about the damage, the noise, Bruno.
Yeah, it's the noise. So for those of you that don't know, the noise that cicadas make, that's cicada, just search that on YouTube and you'll hear this screeching sound. It does, however, a light, if there's only a couple, a light version of that is kind of soothing, and it reminds me of summer, summer as the sun's going down and you're outside playing with your friends, and then all of a sudden a
chirping sound,
you hear Bruno, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go home. Bro, we don't have street lights, but if we did, they'd be on. My mom just yelled at me.
Right.
So yeah, it is the sound of summer. So they are coming. They are nasty looking, and I think they're only really on the East Coast, right?
I think they're mostly an East Coast thing, and I guess that's what cicadas and lawmakers have in common is that they only pop up once every 17 years to do horrible and stupid things, and then they just go off and die.
Oh man, they just go off and die.
Well, okay, they get taken out of office, but the cicadas just I think that's it for them. I think they reproduce, and that's they're Dunsky. But be on the lookout, I guess. Well, look on the lookout. I don't think we're gonna hear about this again because this kind of thing gets shot down so fast. But I mean, how many studies do you need? There was a study as recently as 2020 that made it perfectly clear that there's just no correlation. And it seems like we've had study after study after study that has made it so clear.
If anything, it helps. I was going to say, if anything, it's an outlet for people. So to take something away that maybe people use as an outlet for violence or whatnot. And that's the truth. There are so many times when I'm driving where someone cuts me off and I just think to myself, if this were Grand Theft Auto, boy, that would be a fun interaction.
You're done.
And then I just laugh about it and then move on. So, I don't get all enraged and be like, I'm going to pull out my rocket launcher and blow them up, Nicole. I don't tell my wife that, as we're driving along, honey, pull over. I've got an Uzi right here waiting, and I am mind getting a 2-star. Let's roll.
Honey, man the orbital strike cannons. Lock position on that Corolla.
Dial in the cheat code for the tank right now, babe, in your cell phone, just in case we need it.
Just in case. Oh man, yeah. So, but it's nuts, and even the most recent study showed that there may be, at best, if you wanted to try and say that video games cause problems with kids who play them, there's perhaps a small association with increased aggression, like yelling and pushing. That's it. Yelling and pushing.
That's all we know, because like I said, at the end of the day, you know, when we talk about gun violence in video games or carjacking, we're pressing a button. We're simply pressing a button to reload the gun. We know nothing about actually, yes, there's an animation that goes along with it, but I can tell you from having, you know, actually handled a firearm before, that kind of knowledge has to be taught to you, really, for you to get an understanding of how to use it properly. The same goes for like breaking into a car. You're not just gonna go up randomly to a car and be like, you know what? I'm going to press this little button here and just get into the car. They don't work that way.
You know, 10-year-old me, if I were ever, God forbid, in a situation where I needed to use a firearm to defend myself, video games would have let me down in a major way, because arcades would have taught me to shoot off screen to reload, which is not how it works. And the main shooter that I was playing, GoldenEye, taught me that I just take the gun off screen and there's a clicking sound, I bring it back out and the gun is reloaded.
Yep. Oh, wow. Yeah, we don't really
and
want
then
that
games
either.
like Doom taught me I didn't need to reload. So
games like Doom just have infinite bullets.
what's 10-year-old Nick gonna do? So yeah, well, that's probably a good stopping point. But yeah, I think we most likely won't hear much more about that anytime soon. And thank goodness, you know, good riddance for another 2 decades. Like, get out of here with that. But yeah, man. Well, hey, another great episode in the books. Thanks again so much again for spending an hour with us. And make sure to stop by our website. Like Bruno had mentioned earlier, we do have a new blog article up there from Justin, one of our regular contributors. Make sure to check that out, and also some new blog articles on the way. Also, take a look at that sweet new logo for Quit the Build.
Yeah, how about that?
Something nice. Something nice. And the new intro music as well. Compliments of course, Beat It.
Yeah, buddy, man, I'm so happy with what we're doing with the website, and we're so glad to be able to provide this for our listeners. So be sure to check out quitthebuild.com. You can check out quitthebuild.com/podcast, and you will be able to listen to our podcast as soon as it's up. It's up there before it's up on any other platform, but you can find us on all platforms. We're everywhere. All of them. Every platform that has podcasts, we're out there, from iHeartRadio to Apple Podcasts to Amazon Music to Stitcher to Audible has podcasts now, bro. Like, we're everywhere. We're like Visa. We're everywhere you want to be.
I'm pretty sure at this point you could just go to like the audio section of a Walmart and ask them to check in the back for the Quit the Build podcast, and they'd be able to get it for you. We are everywhere. So yeah, definitely on whatever your platform of choice is, check us out. And great episode as always, Bruno. Happy to do it with you.
Well, that's it from me. For Nick, I'm Bruno.
And for Bruno, I'm Nick.
Peace out. What it do?